Okay, so next episode of the Working Wellbeings podcast. Thank you so much for joining us in the booth at the water cooler event in person. We have Tiina Hoffman from Firstbeat. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, it's great to be here, Matt. Yeah, I'm Tiina from Firstbeat. I'm an exercise physiologist and a master trainer at Firstbeat. Been there 17 years today.
Wow.
As I train professionals to use our methods. I do a lot of lecturing and podcasts and webinars myself. And I also do corporate wellness projects where I'm actually coaching the individuals who do the Firstbeat measurements.
Yeah.
And a little bit about my background. So I come from sports. When I was younger, I was a ski racer, and then I worked for 5 years as a ski coach, Nordic ski coach at the University of Alaska in Anchorage.
Okay.
And then I spent about a decade in various academic research projects in Finland, where I'm from.
Yeah.
But now for my last 17 years, I've been at Firstbeat working with well-being and stress and recovery.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you're from Finland, and the pod that we are sat in today is also from Finland.
Yeah.
So it's always like it was meant to be. It was meant to be. No. So for those who don't know or haven't heard of Firstbeat, I know about it, but I'll let you describe. What is Firstbeat? What does it do? How does it work?
Right. So we're sort of we're a Finnish company, and we are sort of we provide technology to optimize performance for elite athletes, but also for regular working age people. So we work both in sports and in wellness, and we utilize accurate heart rate variability based data and then convert that information into meaningful information about aspects of performance. And of course, it's slightly different if you're working with elite athletes or with working age population, but the basic methodology on the bottom of that is the same.
Yeah. So what is heart rate variability? Why does it matter? What does it show?
Yeah. So heart rate variability, it's an interesting metric. It measures the time between heartbeats. It means how much the time between consecutive heartbeats varies from one interval to the next in millisecond level. Yeah. It's something that we aren't really aware of that. We don't feel that. It's not like your heart rate is going up and down because it's measured at millisecond level. But what it does, it reflects your autonomic nervous system balance.
Yes.
And when heart rate variability is big, it means that your heart is responding and healthy and well. We don't feel that variability. You can feel it if you feel the pulse on your wrist, but it's more of an unconscious part of the heart's ability to respond to life's demands in different situations. And the reason it's interesting is that it's not maybe the metric itself that is of so much interest, but we are able to convert that signal sort of into information about when your body is undergoing some kind of stress and when it's undergoing some kind of recovery. And there's predictable patterns of how the heart rate variability behaves in those kind of situations. And that's kind of what we do at Firstbeat. We utilize that data to get then concrete insights about real life.
Yeah, and I always found it, the way I got my head around it, it always felt a bit paradoxical to me that a more a less regular heartbeat, if you like, is indicative of more recovery, whereas a more regular heartbeat is indicative of more of a stress.
Yeah.
Right. So it's about my layman's understanding was that if a tiger jumps out in front of me, my heart is going to beat very regularly. So the heart rate variability shrinks, right? Because of my body kind of getting ready to get away from the tiger.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's like a healthy heart. It doesn't beat like a metronome. When it beats like a metronome at very equal interval, there's some kind of stress going on. It might be because you're exercising or you're undergoing some kind of stress or meeting that tiger or whatever. But
I've met any tigers.
Yeah. But then, interestingly, the healthy heart, it's not like a metronome. There is this kind of interesting variation, and it is a little bit counterintuitive, but it is a very real physiological phenomenon that tells about the health of the heart.
Absolutely. So you're wearing a Firstbeat monitor right now, right? So
yeah, I am.
So tell me about that. So,
yeah, I am.
So I've seen these. So you stick them to you, don't you?
Yeah, I've got a little device here under my shirt. It's attached on my collarbone and on my rib cage, and it measures every beat of my heart, sort of all day and all night. And
I've worn one. It's not very invasive. Like you forget you wear it.
Yeah, I mean, you really don't notice it. It's here, and that's the idea that it's not like a consumer wearable that you wear every day, every week, 365 days a year, but it's a device that provides professional grade data for maybe 3 days this month, and then you check in again at some point. So the idea is to sort of learn more about your lifestyle. But
the only thing I would say is you've got a less hairy chest than me.
I do.
I had to go off a little bit, but it was all right.
True that. But yeah, it's combined with the Firstbeat Life app that I have on my phone, and so when I'm, I don't know if the camera will actually catch it or not, but you can see different colors.
Yes.
Yeah, you can't see any green, but I'm thinking that by the end of the interview I'll be showing some green. But
so what? Put very simply, we're thinking what red is stress.
Yeah. So the red is stress. It means that your heart rate is elevated and that heart rate variability is low. So it shows that your sympathetic nervous system is in that sort of fight or flight state or prepared state, and it's both positive and negative. So it's absolutely normal part of life, and totally expected in a show like this that most people are probably in some kind of a fairly high activation state when they are here. The blue color that you saw here, that's some kind of physical activity. So like when I was walking from my hotel to here in the morning, or when I was walking back and forth in the conference room. Yeah. And in the green, that hopefully will appear here shortly. That means that your parasympathetic nervous system is engaging, and you're getting away from that fight or flight mode, and your heart rate is slowing down. And ideally we have all of those states sometime during the day so that we can find a good balance between different physiological states.
Interesting. Talk to me about, so you use the word stress. So I'll be honest with you, I've typically said that stress is always a bad thing, right? That stress is the point where actually your body there's negative symptoms associated with that. Challenge and pressure though, and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and doing something difficult, that's good. But you would actually get on the line of saying that stress can be a good thing, right?
Yeah, the way we use the word stress, I almost always qualify it also like as activation or energy, just to get away from that idea that it's only something negative. Because the fact is that most of the time when we are doing our life's chores and duties and meeting all the different demands, it does elevate the activation level and it does show up as some kind of stress. But we do need to be really careful. Like when I speak to clients who are doing the measurement, we always start with that. And remember, the red color, it's not bad. It's okay. We do need to raise that activation level so we are ready for that challenge and ready to kind of face whatever demands the day brings on our way.
Yeah, but, and you've got different levels there as well. So there's a difference of a small amount of activation or energy usage is an incredibly, the tigers jumped out.
Yeah, very much. Yeah. Like I had somebody stop by the stand yesterday who was actually wearing her Firstbeat, and she was showing that her red stress bars, they were really high when she first got here because there was a lot of people and kind of noisy, and so she was really like in a high activation state. But then when she sat down for a couple of the talks, her red bars went very, very low, and we compare that to mine. I was in full green mode when I went to listen to a lecture because I wasn't the one who was presenting. I was just sitting down and kind of enjoying a quiet moment and listening to somebody speak, and that allowed me to kind of recharge my battery in the middle of a busy day in a way.
Yeah, I got you. And what's the difference between this and a Whoop band or an Apple Watch? It gives you a finer level of granularity, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I think the big difference is the accuracy. This is attached on your body via electrodes, so it actually electrically detects every heartbeat. So instead of using the optical wave from the wrist or from the finger, it actually electrically measures that sort of ECG level accuracy. We don't actually it's not a medical device. We don't actually measure ECG, but that's the level of accuracy that we get. And because this is used by professionals, the tool is used by health coaches like yourself, wellness coaches, psychologists, nutritionists, fitness coaches, PTs. So we want to provide them that kind of data that they can truly use with people of any size or shape or color, men and women, while they're moving, while they're resting. So that's why we choose to use this kind of a device that provides that kind of really accurate professional data.
Got you. And for an individual then, why is that useful? So why is that useful? Why do I need to know?
Yeah. I think the biggest reason is that people, they lose track of sort of what it's like to be in balance with your stress and with your recovery. Life today, it's so always on kind of mode.
Normalize being stressed.
People become so used to feeling stressed and feeling tired and maybe feeling fatigued and kind of pushing themselves, and they just have this kind of a mode that we just have to get through the day, and then I'll be ready to sleep, and if it's like a phone, if you don't charge it, it stops working at some point during the day. And the human body is kind of the same way, that if we don't give it a chance sometimes to power down and bring the heart rate down and sort of physiologically give yourself a chance to restore, at some point the stress levels just becomes too much, and you get ill, or you burn out, or you start showing some other kind of symptoms of this kind of built up stress. And obviously hugely strong connection between chronic prolonged stress and burnout, for example. So I guess we try to make people more aware that stress, even if it's not an evil thing, we do need to find a way. Each individual has to kind of find a way to deal with that in a way that's sustainable and healthy.
And the recovery is fascinating as well, right? Because the recovery isn't just, I'm going to sit and put my feet up and all the rest of it. You might be doing something quite, not too difficult, but I heard an example. I think it was from one of your consultants who was talking about, they were working with a client and there was a big peak of green, so recovery in the afternoon or in the evening. And they asked the individual they were coaching about it, and they said that that's when they finally sat down and wrote a book that they were working on. So it was almost this pursuit of purpose and the relief that they'd finally put pen to paper and that they were doing the thing that so it wasn't, recovery's not always, as I understand it, exactly the same as rest. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, for most people, the key time for recovery is clearly sleep.
Sure.
So that's when we would expect to see that green color and parasympathetic dominance. But because life is so always on kind of pace, absolutely, it's not only about putting your feet up and meditating or having a rest. Sometimes it can be doing something meaningful and interesting. Like for myself yesterday, when I was sitting down for a lecture, I was green. So I didn't have to exert a lot of energy in that moment, and it can be just like you said, doing some kind of meaningful work and stopping the multitasking mode and doing something, writing or journaling or doing something that you enjoy.
What about human connection? Does that show up as recovery? If I met someone that I really like spending time with?
Yeah, it depends, of course. I mean, if you meet them in a show like this and there's noise and you're talking and laughing, so then probably that doesn't show up as recovery in that moment. But for example, cuddling with your spouse, or especially I've seen a lot of times when a parent after work, the work might have been quite stressful, and they come home and they fix dinner and they're all busy and their stress levels might be quite high. But then when they cuddle up on the couch and read to their kid, or a mother nursing their baby, or just sitting down on the floor and playing with your child and kind of being in the moment. So yeah, I've seen a lot of green moments in that, and I think it's from that connection. Exactly.
Yeah, I've got 2 young children and I feel a certain amount of recovery. Not when I'm playing at Monopoly. Not then. That's stress because I'm trying to win. But
and your mornings, I mean, that's probably the most typical, the most stressful moment of a person's day that I've seen is the morning hour of parents who have kids, because you've got gotta get everyone ready, fed, dressed, out the door in time, and so to catch the tube or whatever. So that's oftentimes when people have the high stress peak, and then when they go to work, the stress level actually comes down because they get into the mode of what they're really good at and where they can focus on doing their job.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not a one-sided phenomenon that stress is all bad and recovery is all good. It's really more learning about your own life and understanding what are the things that maybe trigger those kind of unhealthy, prolonged stress responses, and what are the things that help you to switch off and power down.
Love it. So, really interesting. I want to ask you about big data, because you collect this data across thousands of individuals, I'm assuming, and that allows you
hundreds of
thousands, and that allows you to aggregate some of this data on a confidential level, obviously, and tell us something about society. So what can you tell us about society and the trends that you're spotting?
Yeah, the big data trends are really interesting because we do have, I think, the most current data analysis that our guys have done, or our data analysts have done, includes about 100,000 measurements between the years 2020 and 2024. And it's more than half of it, it's from UK, Europe, US, and then about half of it is from Finland, where we are based. But so it's a fairly international database, working age people of all ages. And it's anonymized data, so everybody who agrees to do the measurement, they sort of consent that their anonymized data can be used for this kind of analytics. And maybe we'll start with stress. So a couple of things that our data between 2020 and 2024 has shown is that both the subjective experience of stress and the physiological measure of stress has increased or gotten worse. So the percent of people who report themselves as being highly stressed has doubled since 2020. So from 7% to 14%.
So who self-report?
Who self-report themselves of feeling very stressed.
Yes.
And
is that reflected in the heart rate variability?
Yes. I mean, that's a question that they ask when they do a measurement, how stressed they feel. And we just notice that more and more people are reporting themselves as either stressed or very stressed. Yeah. But then at the same time, when we look at the physiological result, the amount of stress and the amount of recovery, we are seeing an increased percent of people who have a poor recovery result. So meaning that even if it's okay to have some of that stress that we talked about, they just have very little of that recovery. So they're like balance between stress and recovery, the result for that, more and more people are having a poor result on that, meaning that they just are having trouble switching off. They're having trouble to power down and getting away from that stress state.
So where do you think that loss of recovery is coming from? Are people sleeping worse? Is it switching off at the end of the day? Or is it losing recovery during the day? Or all
probably a little bit of both. I think since if you look at the years from 2020 to here, we had the pandemic and we've had, tragic, dramatic wars, and the world situation in general has just been very sort of unstable and scary and frightening. So I'm guessing that that's part of the sort of the result behind that's specifically what has happened over the last 4 years. But then I think on a larger scale, what we already talked about, this kind of constant availability and being always on and having your phone always there and feeling like you need to answer the email or you need to be present on social media and you can check the news on your phone. So I think that's just becoming more and more common, and in a way that's reflected in that, people, that ability to switch off, it's becoming more challenging. And of course there is individual challenges that different people have, and job uncertainty, and so many kind of life factors that can cause that. But we are seeing it both in the sleep results and also in the sort of the recovery during daytime results.
Well, that's cheery. That's cheery. So you believe that raising people's awareness of this in themselves can help to reverse that trend?
Yeah, I think that many of the solutions are quite, it is not cheery, but at the same time, we are having a lot of people who also are having a good balance. We're just seeing an increased percent of those people who are having the poorest results. But many of the solutions, we obviously cannot make the world all a happy and better place very easily. And there's a lot of things that are completely outside of our control. But what we try to sort of highlight is that you can influence things in your own life. You can prioritize enough time for sleep, and you can learn to power down once in a while. You can figure out from your own life what are the things, like small things you could do to allow yourselves to bring your stress level down. An example from a recent project I did with an international law firm, and some of their sort of upper end partners were taking these measurements, and I did a coaching session with them. And one of the really concrete learnings and insights they had was that their days just tended to be sort of nonstop, one meeting after the other, and their PA scheduled the meetings. Every time they saw a hole in their schedule, a meeting came in there. And these executives, they said that they just felt like sort of powerless. They just kept going all day. And then we discussed the simple fact of just establish 50-minute meetings or 55-minute meetings or 25-minute meetings. And I mean, it's so simple, but it really, if companies who have started to actually practice that way people will have a little break, a little breather. They can use it to be mindful or to do some deep breathing exercises, or maybe just to go to the bathroom and have a cup of water or a cup of tea or something like that. So.
And you saw that reflected in the heart rate variability?
Yeah, quite a few people, really started.
Where the power is, right? Because you can give an objective measure to that. Because it's all very well someone coming into an organization and saying you should have 55-minute meetings, and they kind of feel a little bit better and it sounds quite good, but then slowly but surely it moves back to 60-minute meetings. The power I see in a tool like yourselves, that like you have, is that if you can back that up with objective data that shows this is showing that we have better recovery that's irrefutable, and therefore we need to keep doing or even expand, our attempts to create more recovery in the workplace.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. And then also I think the individual nature of this whole thing, that not the same things will help you recover and help me recover, or somebody else recover. And I think this kind of data can help people understand that there is no sort of one size fits formula for everyone, like how you should plan your day, but they can figure out, for one person it's going outside and staring at the trees, or hugging trees literally, or for somebody else it's meditation, for somebody else it might be doing a crossword puzzle for a little while. So it really highly individualizes the strategies, and instead of trying to kind of put the same formula on everyone, because that it's not realistic for people to try to follow that kind of generic guidelines.
Yes, that's it. That's the personalization, because that's one of the things that the industry, the well-being industry, we're sat here today at a trade show, there's been a backlash against these one-size-fits-all, do this perk, give everybody yoga, and that will sort everybody out.
Yeah.
There's been a real backlash in the industry against that. But what we need is more data that allows us to take a more personalized individual approach, right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this kind of data that, I'm not really a data geek, even if I work with data. I don't think a person needs to have data every day to tell them how they are doing or what's working and what's not working. I think the data is just sort of an eye-opener for the individual and the coach who is working with them. It can help set the course and select a few strategies and maybe check back in the following month. But I think it's oftentimes more important to live your life and follow those good principles. But many people require that little push or the little motivation, and that's where data can really be that kind of a push to help them understand what they can do a little bit better.
Got you. Got one more question about the big data. So one of the themes that's been coming up, reflected in a number of the different sessions, and there's been a few conversations about it in the pod as well, generational differences in the workplace. Does your data shed any light on how the stress and recovery change based on the person's life stage?
Yeah. Interesting sort of, for those of us who are belonging to that aging population. I'm 62 myself, so typically people, as they get older, recovery becomes more challenging, and almost everyone recognizes that it's not as easy to recover from stressful days and hard workouts, and our data clearly shows that. So people in their upper 50s or in their 50s and early 60s, they do have more challenges with good recovery than people in their 20s and 30s. So that's physiologically, it gets harder to get good recovery. But then on the positive side, which I think it's really kind of exciting, is that the people in their 50s and 60s, they are subjectively feeling less stressed than people in their 20s and 30s. And they are showing better physical activity habits. So a larger percent of people in their 50s are fulfilling the sort of the universal exercise guidelines compared to people in their 20s and 30s, maybe because they're realizing that they have to do something about it, that otherwise it's just kind of a big downhill trend. And whereas people in their 20s and 30s are starting careers, starting families, building houses, sort of getting going with everything. And that's oftentimes when many of the lifestyle issues kind of are forgotten. And probably one of the explanations why, like, for example, burnout is really prevalent in the younger age groups.
Yes.
So in a way, we do need slightly different strategies for the reminders for the younger people, but then older people can also, appreciate the fact that they are maybe finding a better rhythm for their lives. They're going to bed earlier. They're prioritizing sleep a little bit better than the younger people, but they have to do that if they want to physiologically kind of slow down the trend that aging usually brings.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Have you ever heard of the 4-burner analogy? Have you heard of this? So your life has 4 burners, so I'm going to forget them now, but it's family, friends, work, and health.
Right.
And the idea is that you can't have all 4 burning at the same time.
Yeah.
And that I hear that reflected in what you're saying there. So a younger person, perhaps, they've got work kind of turned up to the max. They've got family turned up to the max. And perhaps therefore health turns down a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you think it's about it?
Very much, actually. I've never heard exact analogy, but I use that quite a bit with people, the younger people, is that when they have small kids and they have their job, it might be too much to, for example, be training for a marathon or to try to do like the full exercise program they'd like to do. And I say that just put exercise on the back burner to kind of simmer for a while. Don't forget it completely, because if you stop exercising for 10 years, it's going to be really hard to get back to it. But just accept that in this busy life situation, it's okay to just go walking, you know, every day for 20 to 30 minutes, or go outside and play with your kids, or commute to work every once in a while. And then when that situation changes, you can bring it back in a little bit more bigger emphasis when you have time for that again.
Yeah. You could be speaking to me there, Tiina. I've got 2 young children, and I often feel the guilt of the fact that I don't go to the gym quite as much as I feel I should do. But you're right.
You can put it on a maintenance mode for now.
But the risk is, without that data and without that insight, and I've fallen foul of this, you just switch it off.
Yeah.
Just switch off. You say, I can't deal with that.
Yeah, forget it for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And
that's another, one more quick finding from the big data is that systematically for years we've seen a very clear correlation between that people who are in better fitness, they have better recovery, whether we look at recovery during workday or recovery during sleep. So that good physical fitness, it does, in a way, it improves your body's capacity to recover from the stresses of daily life. Whereas if your fitness is very low, the daily life takes more out of you and it's harder to get that good recovery. So investment in fitness is definitely a great investment in overall health as well.
I'm glad you've said that. It's a really good place to end, actually, because you come to an event like this and we're looking for the next thing around, the cognitive improvements how we can utilize AI, but often it comes down to those the base level things, like how much am I moving? What am I eating? What are those base level things that have a huge impact on my levels of stress and recovery, inside and outside.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Perfect.
Let's check in on my data.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to do that before we finish. How stressful has this whole experience been?
Well, it is. Let's say that it's basic level of activation. So it's not like sky high, but I wasn't able to get into a Zen recovery mode during that. But it's tough to do when you're talking and engaging and, kind of trying to make sure that you make a good point. So very good example of positive stress in a way, that it's not, I'm not, it's nothing negative about it, but it's just, we are charged up. And I'm guessing if you had your device on, you'd probably be the same. You're doing this all day and you have to jump from one topic to the next, so your brain has to be really on to be doing that.
Do you know, we should do it. We should hook them up with some time and do it while we're listening to you.
Compare notes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, look, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. My last question, which is really important, is where can people find you? How do they find out more about Firstbeat away from the event?
Yeah, well, here at the event, of course, you can come to our stand here where we can get more information, but just go to firstbeat.com, firstbeat.com. And you can find information there. You can find my contact information there, and just drop us an email, and we'll tell you more. We have a nice website that tells all about the solution.
And where do you post about the big data and whatnot, the insights?
Well, we write blogs about it on our website. We occasionally have a webinar where we talked about that. So on the website you can find quite a bit about that as well. And if as an individual, if you are interested in doing this kind of measurement for yourself, so we utilize our partner network. So just by contacting us, we can provide you a partner in your area, and then they can provide the actual coaching and measurement for you from that.
Lovely. Right. Thank you so much for your time today.
Good to chat with you, Matt. Yeah, thanks. You too.